And welcome back to the video lecture series for Philosophy 119, Ethical Leadership, offered through the Pennsylvania State University. I'm Dr. William Behun. Today I'd like to talk about some of the specific ideas about education that Plato puts forward in Book 7 of Republic. Now, I've always said that when Plato really wants you to understand something, he's not going to give you an argument. He's going to tell you a story. And Book 7 begins with one of the most famous stories in all of philosophy, the allegory of the cave. In his cave myth, and it is a myth, that is to say something that's not literally or historically true, but reveals some sort of deeper truth in its meaning, we're given a picture of a group of people who are chained up from birth. Their feet are bound, their hands are bound, even their necks and heads are bound, so they have to look straight forward at a cave wall. Now on this cave wall they see shadows projected by sort of puppets that are being manipulated by people who are standing behind them. Now these prisoners have no reason to believe that the shadows that they see, which is all they've ever seen in their lives, are anything but fully and truly real. Though in fact from an outside perspective we can see that they're merely images. This is an allegory for our own day-to-day existence. The aim of philosophy for Plato is to recognize that there is something more real behind the so-called real world, the spiritual world of the forms. In Plato's story, one of the prisoners is freed. He's able to turn around and see the apparatus behind him, and see that the images that he took to be reality for his whole life are actually false. He's compelled to travel up from the cave. So we begin a journey through the cave where he sees the shadow puppets and then the fire that projects their light onto the walls. Then he emerges from the cave entirely. And when he does so, he's blinded after having been in the dark for so long. But as his eyes adjust to the light, he sees at first reflections, then things, trees, animals, etc. And finally, he's able to see the stars and the moon, and last of all, he sees that which illuminates the whole process, the sun. Now in Plato's allegory, the sun represents the good, the form of the good itself. And the journey of our prisoner represents our upward journey in the process of philosophical education. Now, one might think that Plato's story simply ends here. But in fact, the most important part of the story is still to come. Because the freed prisoner, having made his ascent from the world of images, that half-lit world of shadows, up to the truly real world, and having seen the sun, the form of the good, he then goes back down into the cave. And it's this move that brings our discussion into the realm of leadership. Because he goes down out of a sense of responsibility to his fellow prisoners. He's become qualified to lead them. But when he goes back down into the cave, he's again blinded. His eyes have become used to the light of the sunlit world, and so now he has trouble adjusting to the darkness of the day-to-day world of the prisoners. When he tells the other prisoners what he's seen, first, they say he's crazy, because he's talking about this other world that exists outside of the only reality that they've ever known. And if they even concede that this other world really exists, they'll say that it damaged him, it ruined his eyesight. In effect, they'll say, who would want to go to this world that you've described? And if he persists, Plato says that they would lay hands on him. They would kill him. Naturally, we can see a parallel to the story of Socrates played out here, but the story also operates on a more general level. This is the position that the ethical leader often finds himself in, and that leaders are called upon to make decisions for people who may not fully understand the motivations or the reasons for making the choices that they do. However, for Plato, the process of education and the process of the cultivation of leaders for the community has to be one that creates in the citizens of the community an almost absolute faith and absolute trust in their leaders. To this end, it makes use of philosophical education and includes both the ascent to the vision of the form of the good and also the return to the everyday world, so that the philosopher might become truly an ethical leader. In the second half of Book 7, Plato lays out a rather precise curriculum for the guardians of this new society. While reconstructing the whole of the curriculum may take a certain amount of speculation on our part, I think that we can get a good overall sense of what Plato believes contributes to the cultivation of a great leader. while it has to be conceded that Plato isn't only interested in the education of leaders, but rather in the education of the whole community, the ultimate thrust of the educational system seems to be towards raising up a generation of people who are capable of guarding society and ensuring both its political welfare and its ethical integrity. In our next video, we'll look at some of the very specific prescriptions that Plato makes for these ethical leaders and their education.